thing that's all that was left there, and they had dishes and everything, and all like made out of stone, and I could feel their relationship. It was really interesting because I told Vicki about it, and it was not too long after that she translated, and I said it was really interesting because in the dream, I could feel like your feelings for each other, and I said it felt like in the dream that he loved you more than you loved him, and she said, oh no, it's the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's interesting that it brought it to the surface, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have definitely been the other way
Yeah.
around. Definitely, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Yeah, because he was very much in love with Cal.
Kathy, I know, that was
Oh, dear.
obvious, way from way back.
The one that
Yeah,
he's with now, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just meant to be.
He knew how to keep aloof and detached in the relationship with Vicki. That was so obvious. Like
They were like roommates.
they were. It's like, Ron, are you here? You know. I remember when Vicki and I had our
I
little
think
thing.
he was in love with
Ron was
Kathy
like,
for a very
they
long
like make her
time.
believe he doesn't know what's going on. I said, are you not even noticing? You know. Anyway, we'll get into that. Let's see.
Well, see, he was meant to be with Kathy,
Yeah.
which was pretty cool. That they actually did end up together after all that time. That was really cool. But anyway, before we get started, I just wanted to thank everybody for all of their encouragement and their energy and their help with my move. And that was a really big deal. And it's so interesting to me that I have a tendency to like create physical imagery in relation to whatever I happen to be doing and whatever movement I'm doing, and that was a big one. I think I'm making some big moves with myself, and one of them, which I don't know, I have no idea what Elias is going to talk about, but I know that I know that what I'm dealing with or what I'm realizing is related to what a lot of people are also kind of connecting with themselves, and in relation to perception and realizing, I don't know, I've been giving myself a really healthy dose of differences in perception and how crazy that is. It's like really insane to realize how people can have such different perceptions and it can be real. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I know I have thought about that through the years and stuff, listening to things that Elias has said, but I don't think it's ever really registered with me and really hit home in a real way until now. That it's like being like in an actual physical experience with someone else and me seeing one thing and the other person seeing something entirely different. It's like mind-boggling to me how that can even be possible. I mean, and I realize, you know, whenever people have said, well, just like also like the other day, this is what I'm used to. Okay, so my daughter and I like are both kind of whacked over Game of Thrones, and so so last week was the finale of Game of Thrones, right? Okay, well, before Sunday, we had gone on a walk together with the dogs, and we were talking about, you know, the finale of it, and let me just qualify first of all. I ended up being wrong, but I didn't know that until later. But anyway, so I said, she said, I can't believe that, the finale of the whole show is on Sunday. And I was like, no, it's not. And she said, well, yes, it is. And I said, no, it's not. And I said, it can't be, because they're doing a special on the making of the whole, series or whatever. And she was like, no, they're not. It's this Sunday. They're having the finale. And, we went back and forth for about a minute, okay? Which I think is probably typical when people, they're talking about something and each one of them is saying something completely different, and you're not really arguing, but you realize the other person isn't going to give in, and you're not going to give in either, because you're convinced that, whatever you're saying is right, and you really think that the other person is either delusional or they're mistaken or whatever, but you don't want to fight about it, so you just kind of drop it after about a minute, and you just kind of go, okay, whatever, and you dismiss it. And which we did. And I noticed later, in the moment I didn't think about it, but later I thought about it, because I've been thinking a lot about differences in perception and how it just seems so impossible that you can have two different perceptions at the same time and actually be engaging the same thing. Now, in this case, I was actually wrong because I got the dates wrong, and I was recording that special, which is going to be on tomorrow, and I thought it was last week, so I ended up being wrong. But my perception was pretty strong that I was right at the time. But I've been having other experiences where it isn't even a matter of being right or wrong about something. It's just a matter of things being incredibly different, and being able to look at the same exact thing, looking at this room and looking at this rug in this room, and me seeing several rugs in this room in pieces, and they're all this dark red color, and somebody else saying to me, no, it's all one piece and it's brown. Okay, now we're at a stalemate, because this isn't a matter of concept. This is what? No, it's not. There are several pieces. And I would probably even go as far as to say, and I bought them, so I know there are several pieces, and I put them in here, so I know that there are several pieces, and they're dark red. And if the other person insisted and said, no, there isn't, there's one piece, and I don't care if you bought it or not, there's one piece, and it's brown. In being aware enough at this point right now and not wanting to dismiss what the other person is saying, that becomes super hard. When you can't compute what the other person is saying, your brain won't take it in. It's going, no, wrong. And I'm trying to realize that somebody else has a different perception from mine, and it's real, and it's just as real as mine. and how those two things can exist side by side and not intersect. It's like really weird. And what happens sometimes, I don't know about all the time because I don't know what other people do, but for me, what happens if my perception is really different from somebody else's, depending on how my perception is different, if I think that the other person's if I think that my perception is telling me that something is wrong with the other person's situation, I automatically jump into fix-it mode, which all of you have been Elias people for a long time, so everybody here knows that that word is like, that's like the worst curse word in Elias language, is like fix it. That's like terrible. You could be saying fuck it way easier and that would be nothing. Fix it is like the worst thing you can do. And everybody around you will be chiding you and judging you because they'll be saying, what's wrong with you? You're not supposed to fix things, And so realizing that I automatically go into fix-it mode was like, oh my God, choke me now. Okay, just like, shoot me in the head or throw me in a cell because this is just terrible. How could I possibly be that kind of person? I could be a prostitute better than being a fix-it person. It's like, oh my God. And then realizing what the implications of the fix-it person means really sent me over the edge of, okay, well, if I'm being the fix-it person, then that means that I'm pretty much telling the other person that whatever they're doing is terrible and not good enough and bad and wrong, and I have a better answer. And, oh man, I really don't want to do that, but I do it. And looking at that and admitting to that to myself was like, I really wanted to dig myself into a hole with that one. I mean, it was just awful, and it was a really not good revelation. And I just couldn't even believe it about myself first, and then I was like, when I really saw it, I was like, okay, wow, this is gonna be horrible, and how am I ever gonna, change this? And interestingly enough, it is being not so hard to change it now that I see it, now that I know what it is. It seems to be kind of changing itself pretty well. But I even told my counselor about it. I was like, oh my God, I'm the worst person on the planet. And she's like, I really don't think it's that bad, Mary. But I'm like, you don't even know, it's really bad. I'm like, this is not what I want to be. This is not who I want to be at all. How awful of me anyway. And especially with people that I care about and I love, I don't want to be projecting an energy to them that they're not good enough and that their choices suck and that they're doing something wrong. And also, in the meantime, I'm also projecting an energy encouraging them to be dependent, which really sucks. Because I really don't want to do that, but I'm doing it, or I was doing it, and I think that is a really hard thing to come to terms with, and it's all because I couldn't, and believe me, I still can't, but because I couldn't accept that somebody else could have a very different perception from mine, and that theirs is equally as valid, and that I don't have to do something to make theirs match mine. Which is really hard, because you automatically want to make the other person match yours in your perception. And I still don't understand how that works or how that's possible. I mean, I wouldn't go so far by any stretch to say that I have moved into a position of accepting that people have different perceptions and that that's really real. I don't think I'm quite there yet. But I can say that I'm not bothered by it. It isn't bothering me that somebody might have a very different perception from mine, and it isn't. I guess in my perception now, I think it's not impossible. Which for me, that's a big step. I mean, because I think I was definitely believing that it was impossible. You just can't do it. You just can't, you can't see the exact same thing at the same time and see two different things. It's just, how is that even possible? And I mean, you can think about it intellectually, but really, if you're having a conversation with somebody, you probably aren't going to stand there and say, oh, isn't that interesting that you have such a different perception from me? Wow, that's so cool. I don't think you're going to say that. I mean, you're probably going to say, no. That's not what's happening. And then you'll just poo-poo it when the other person doesn't relent. When they keep holding to their perception, both of you will just dismiss it and walk away and not think about it too much, because your brain can't handle it. And it's like, okay, that's not possible. I mean, so I think getting to a point where I at least am not fighting with it and am like saying, okay, maybe it's possible, is pretty big in itself. I mean, at least it's not completely discounting the other person or completely dismissing them, which I really don't want to do. It also has made me kind of look at myself in another way too, that another one of Elias' terrible words, that I kind of have seen myself in a different light of being pretty rigid about things. I can be flexible sometimes, but I can be pretty rigid about things too. I mean, things that I definitely believe, or directions that I'm going in, or whatever, I'm not real flexible on. If other people kind of want to go in a different direction, I'm like, no, I don't think so. And I don't like that word either. I don't like I like thinking about myself as being flexible. And it doesn't feel real good to think of myself as being rigid. Yeah.
You seem flexible to me. Can I put you on the spot to ask?
Yeah, you can, absolutely. I would say, now, actually, that's interesting, because my counselor said the same thing. And she actually said something to me which was really interesting. By the way, I go to a counselor because my daughter was like making me feel like I really needed some kind of help. And so, but actually it's turned out to be really good because it's really kind of cool to talk to somebody. And I can't talk to the dead guy like you guys can,
Right.
so it's kind of cool that I can talk to somebody. Mostly I just like vent, but it's cool. And but she said the same thing, and she also said to me, she made a suggestion to me that I look at how I'm defining rigid, and that actually we did talk about it, and she said that actually most of my definition of rigid about myself is about stuff that I do or how I do it. And that she said that she would not use the word rigid, she would use the word disciplined and organized.
Perfectionist.
No, cause I would definitely say I'm not a perfectionist. I can definitely go in that direction because I can see, you know, even with my creativity or my art or whatever, I do have a tendency to cut corners.
I've seen all your stuff though, the organization, and you
Yes.
saw my art room. The
Well, I
contrast
am
is
very
blown away to
organized.
see your stuff and my stuff.
Yeah, I am very organized, and I do like things to be in their place. And anybody that's been to my house and seen my sewing room can attest to I like things to be organized, and I like things to be in their place, and yeah.
My older son Tom said when he saw my art room, he said, "Mom," he said, "this isn't messy, this is mental illness." I said, "Maybe."
Yeah, I mean, so I have actually, and she did bring up a few examples to me of things that I've talked to her about, and she did say that this would be an example of what flexible would be and what rigid would be if you were this. It's like, and you don't go in that direction and whatever. And she said, and when other people do things, you seem to be able to go with the flow with that, which I do. I can do that, but I'm not that way with myself. I need things to be, you know, everything, a place for everything and everything in its place,
Right.
even in my brain. I mean, I need things to be organized and whatever, which is why my daughter calls me OCD. But, and so I am starting to kind of maybe relax that definition with myself a little bit just recently, that maybe that's a little too harsh. Maybe I'm not really that rigid, because I really didn't like that word either. I was like, oh man, I'm so screwed. I'm like, I have been doing this for almost 25 years now, and this is how far I've gotten. That sucks. I'm like, man, I am still so far behind the 8 ball. I mean, hello. I'm like, any of you that are thinking that you just haven't gotten too far for however long you've been listening to Elias, well, hello, I've been there since day one, and I really felt like, my God, what am I thick as a brick that this stuff is not going in? I'm like, because I'm still dealing with these kinds of things or whatever. But I think that at first I was being kind of really hard on myself. I mean, not that I am minimizing the business about the differences with perception, because that still is baffling me a lot. It's one thing to be able to say, yeah, people have different perceptions. It's another thing to be in your face with it and be okay with it. It's not easy to be okay with it. I mean, and it's easier when it's something that is conceptual. Other people can come up to me and talk to me about both sides about, you know, the U.S. government and Trump and how they feel and whatever. They hate him or they think he's great. I mean, and I have a bunch of clients who think he's great and voted for him. So don't think for a second that everybody that talks to the dead guy hates Trump, because they don't. There's quite a few of them that really love him. And I can listen to either side and not think too much and not feel too much about it and think to myself, oh, okay, that's their perception. I don't necessarily agree with them, but, you know, okay, whatever. But when it comes to, you know, yeah, this rug is in 3 pieces and it's red and somebody is telling me something completely different, then I'm like, yeah, okay, I can't really wrap my brain around that and, you know, say, okay, that's like somebody walking up to me and saying, gee, what a cute little black dog you have. What? I mean, it just, I think our brains are wired in a certain way in relation to our senses, and they input information in this absolute way, and it's really, really hard to change that.
What do people do when they perceive a green carpet?
They just
Red
see
light,
a green one. I mean, and I mean,
Traffic lights.
It's like that thing Jean shared online, right, with the tennis shoe, and it's a pink.
Yeah. Oh yeah, gray
Yeah.
and then pink and then white.
Right.
Right.
you know, people see different things, and they have, you know, different associations and stuff, you know. I mean, when we moved, my daughter moved into a new apartment, and my immediate perception of her apartment is that it sucks. That it's filthy, it's horrible, it's like a slum, it's the most tiniest thing ever, it's claustrophobic, it's so small, it's broken, and now here's the deal with the difference in perception. Because of all of that, I have to move you again. I will find you a better place.
Fixing.
Yep. And I will move you into a better place. The implications of that are huge. She found this apartment herself. I asked her if she wanted help, and she said no. And so I said, okay. And she moved. I asked her if she wanted help packing, and she said no, and I said okay. And I asked her if she wanted help moving, and she said no, she had it covered, and I said okay. And she chose this place, and she got friends of hers to help her move, and she moved into this place, and I went over there and saw it, and I was horrified. And by telling her that I thought it sucked and that it was not fit for a homeless person to live in, I said that to her.
Oh God, how bad was it? Oh my God.
That's what I said to her. makes me want to cry right now that I actually said that to her, because now I understand what I was saying to her and what the implications of that were, and for me to then follow that by saying, don't worry about it, I will move you out of here and we'll find you a different place.
Mommy will fix it. Why, I identify.
Which I might as well have said to her, you are an idiot.
Alright.
You can't do anything
Anything.
right. Your choices suck. You're not capable of taking care of yourself. You're not capable of making decisions by yourself. And so I have to fix it. What a god-awful thing to say to your own kid. I mean, it makes me want to just stab myself. And she is so used to me fixing things that she didn't dispute me. She just was like, yeah, I know.
Oh no.
Which is pretty awful too.
Is the place fixable? Uppable? Like making it nicer?
Well, okay, so this still is a matter of differences in perception.
Yeah.
Okay. It's very small, and that is a big piece that influences my perception because I need a lot of space. And I like a lot of space. And and so that's the first thing right off the bat, that it's so small. Now I did, which I shared with you, I did remember a conversation that she and I had about a year ago in the old house, where she came to me and she was bitching about something about the house, and she said, you know, one of the reasons I hate this house is because it's so big. And I said, what? And she was like, this house is too big. It's huge. It makes me, I feel overwhelmed, and I have a constant sense of anxiety running, underlying things all the time, every day, 24 hours a day, because this house is too big and it is overwhelming to me. I didn't say anything else to her at the time, but I do remember thinking, how's that even possible? I could live in a house with 58 bedrooms and I would be perfectly fine. I mean, I could live in a castle and it would be fine. Nothing could be too big. There's no such thing as too big. Too small, yes. Too big, never. That struck me while I was at her apartment a little over a week ago, and I thought, oh, it doesn't change my perception that it's really too small, but it did make me think, well, maybe she feels more safe and more comfortable in this place because it's so small. Which she doesn't have to think about it. It definitely isn't very much to clean because it's so tiny and it's manageable. So maybe she feels more comfortable because it isn't like ginormously big or whatever. That, I don't know that that's her perception. I think that it was just something that came to me to make me feel better, and to try and maybe understand something about how different our perceptions are, because they're really, really And it's really hard. That's what I mean. You know, it's when I'm standing in a room and there's literally this much room between the couch and the table that the TV is sitting on, which is across the room. That's it. There's probably less than 3 feet that you can walk through. I mean, I was feeling claustrophobic in that apartment. It's so tiny. And to, like, have somebody else, like, I mean, she's not saying it's huge or anything. She admits that it's small, but, I mean, she doesn't seem uncomfortable. She isn't saying anything that she's uncomfortable. She doesn't act like she's uncomfortable. So
Have you asked her how she feels about the apartment?
I did the other day, and she said it's okay. She didn't say it's great or that, you know, she's in love with it. There's a lot to not love about it. And it's got a lot of broken things. Which the longer she's there, the more she's realizing. She did say that when she first moved in, she felt like she thinks that she was disassociating quite a bit because she was feeling overwhelmed, and because she was doing this by herself this time, and that was kind of overwhelming for her. But that she also feels like it's comfortable enough that she would be okay living there for the next 1.5 to 2 years, that she doesn't want to move. And that she said it's a little bit too small for her, but she can deal. Which I think partly she was trying to agree with me, partly. I mean, she doesn't really agree with me.
Just seems like you see the differences in perception. There's also similarities in perception as well. So if you ask, you can.
Yeah, is it enough room for the county?
You can navigate.
I think that though, I think that she doesn't have that much of a commonality with my perception. I think some of what she says is kind of just trying to be more appeasing. Because she's used to that. Because she doesn't want to oppose me. I mean, not in something like that. She will oppose me in other things, but she's not real big on opposing me in something like that because I support her. And so I think that threatens her if she which is also makes me crazy. I don't want her to feel that way, but I'm sure she does. And I'm sure that a lot of that is because of how I have behaved for years and years and years and have encouraged her to be dependent. Which sucks. And I don't want her to be that. I want her to be her own person, and I want her to be independent, and I want her to make her own choices. But I have consistently made choices and expressed myself in ways that have definitely influenced the opposite, which is a really hard thing to swallow when you're looking at yourself and thinking about it and going, oh my God, I can't believe I have been this way and I have done this to my kid. It sucks. And it's a really hard thing it's a bitter pill to swallow. But the good part or the upside of all of that is that I can actually see it. And so I can do something about it. And the fact that I can see it is making me realize or look at that subject of differences in people's perceptions, and even though it's still like next to impossible to understand, I don't get it yet. I don't know if I'll ever get it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I mean, but whatever. At least I can stop myself from pushing it onto somebody else. Or thinking that somebody else is wrong or delusional or crazy because they don't see what I see.
And what about your granddaughter? I mean, that's another piece of this thing.
Well, yeah, because that totally like has an influence with me too. And the thing is about that is that my granddaughter and I are kind of two peas in a pod. We're very much alike. My daughter and I are like opposites. We're very much not alike. And that is the piece that is really unfortunate, because then, you know, she doesn't just have to deal with one of us, but two of us. You know, that are, she's like battling, you know, the onslaught. That, you know, she's very much I think naturally a minimalist. And you've all been to my house and you can see I'm not. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff. And so does Allie. And
Is there room in the place for her stuff?
no.
Oh,
Is it a 2-bedroom at least? Does she have her own space?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really tiny. And most of their stuff is in our basement because there's no room for it.
And there's animals in Allie's room too.
No, they're not in her room anymore.
Oh,
That's when I had this revelation, because I was
where you
moving
moved them.
they took one of the guinea pigs and the rabbit. But they can't, because the place is so small, they can't let the rabbit run around anymore, which he's not happy with because he's never been in a cage before. So he's not happy. So he's like rattling the cage all the time, and he was in the same room with Allison because she had the biggest room. And she couldn't sleep because all night long he's bang, 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 like on the cage. And so John asked me to come over and switch it, take the cage out of her room and reconfigure it and put it in the living room, which I did. And I was like, God, this room is so small, I can't even move. I can't even turn around in this room, it's so tiny. I'm like, you know, I put Belle on the couch, she went in the corner and fell asleep. I'm like, that's what I would be doing if I would be in this room. I can be in this room. I'm like claustrophobic. It feels like a closet. It's so small. And, you know, and she's like, whatever. It didn't seem to bother her at all. I mean, she doesn't seem to be upset or bothered, and that's what I should have been paying attention to. Instead of what I feel or think. I don't live there. What difference does it make? Why does it bother me? I mean, and I tell myself it bothers me because I love her and I want her to be in someplace nice. But I'm gauging what the nice is, what that means. I mean, and what means nice to me may be something entirely different to her. It might be overwhelming to her the old house was nice, and it was too big for her. I mean, well, I thought it was great because, you know, my granddaughter had the entire 3rd floor. She had her own suite. My daughter had half the 2nd floor. You know, and I'm thinking that's great. They have, you know, all this room, and my daughter the whole time is feeling overwhelmed and having anxiety about the whole thing because it's too much room. It's too big, and all she can think about is how much she can't keep it clean because it's too big. I'm not thinking about that at all. I hire a cleaning lady, like whatever. So it's been an interesting experience to realize these things, and I think that the reason that I'm sharing this is because I think that it's important for me, I should not include anybody else, but I think for me it's important to be vulnerable and genuine and share with other people because it helps me to see myself more, and maybe it helps to encourage someone else in whatever they're doing, and maybe they will be able to see something too. But I also think that it's especially, I don't know, I guess I feel especially that because I do what I do with the dead guy, I think it's important that people see me as being human. And that I have my flaws too. That, you know, I'm not trying to pretend to be out there and be like all-knowing and better than everybody else, because I certainly am not. I mean, I don't want to like put myself in a position where I'm like completely discounting myself, because I actually kind of like myself now. But that doesn't mean I don't have my flaws. And so that was my revelation for this